Hello, I'm R.A. Spratt, and I want to welcome people joining us this week on the Yoto podcast platform. Now, just so you know, most of the bedtime stories I tell here are standalone stories. But over the last year, we have been dipping in and out of the epic story of Odysseus, the hero from ancient Greek mythology. And this week, I'm going to be telling the second last installment of that tale. So if you can jump in right here, that'll be fine. I'm sure you'll pick it all up. But if you did want to go back to the beginning and start from the first episode, you can search back through the episodes. The first episode's called Odysseus, as told by Nanny Piggins, and it dropped on January 8th, 2025. Or you can go back and listen to any of the other episodes. You're going to find fairy tales, myths, legends, and mysteries. I hope you enjoy them all. Now let's get into it. Hello and welcome to Bedtime Stories with me, R.A. Spratt. All right, now, I know I said I was going to do a Greek myth, or I can't remember what I said I was going to do this week, but there's, people have been asking for Nemesis and Psyche and a whole bunch of stories, and I was fully intending to write one of those stories for this week, but unfortunately I forgot that the audiobook of Friday Barnes 2 was released about a week ago, or maybe even longer, maybe on the 1st of July. And I didn't realize because I was on holiday that it had actually come out. You're having a busy year when an audiobook comes out and is released and you don't even realize it. I mean, I narrated it as well as writing the book. So that's pretty bad. So anyway, I got to promote it. So I'm going to read you some of that because I'd really love it if you like this podcast, you're going to love the audiobook. So I'm going to read you the first 2 or 3 chapters. Probably over this week and next week, because the first mini mystery in the book is actually sort of like 2 mini mysteries woven together. So I don't think I'll be able to cover it all in one week. Anyway, I'm going to give you at least 1 episode, maybe 2 episodes out of that book, the start of that book, to encourage you to buy it yourself. You can get it anywhere. You can get audiobooks. So that's Audible, Apple Books, if you get audiobooks where you get them from. But also if you're on Spotify and you've got Spotify Premium, if you're paying for your Spotify subscription, you can get it as part of that. Or you can get it if you're getting free Spotify and just pay for it through there. So anyway, there's lots of ways you can get the audiobook. The audiobook takes 4 hours. So it's 4 hours long. So it's like you're getting normally an episode of this podcast 20 minutes. So it's like you're getting 3 times 4, 12 episodes in one of the podcast. It's equivalent to that. So I think you get good value for money out of it. So so I'm going to read you the first couple of chapters to give you a taster, and then hopefully you'll love it so much you'll go get the audiobook and the book, or both, or whatever. Okay, let's just get into it. Okay, here we go. So this is right back at the beginning of Friday Barnes, the second book in the series, Friday Barnes Under Suspicion. And we're going to begin on chapter 1, page 1. And the chapter 1 is called Wrongly Accused. Friday and her best friend, Melanie Pelly, were sitting in the dining hall at Highcrest Academy, enjoying second helpings of chocolate cake. They'd had a long day solving crime and saving the school's reputation, so Mrs. Marigold, the cook, felt they had earned an extra serving of dessert. But their calorie-induced bliss was about to be interrupted. "Barnes!" snapped a voice from behind them. Friday and Melanie turned around. The headmaster was standing next to a uniformed police sergeant. "What's this?" asked Friday. "Am I getting some sort of citizenship award for everything I've done for the school?" "No," said the headmaster soberly. "I'm afraid not." "Friday Barnes," said the police sergeant, "I have to ask you to come with me." "Why?" asked Friday. "Because I'm arresting you," said the police sergeant. "You're not obliged to say anything unless you wish to do so, but whatever you say or do may be used as evidence. Do you understand?" "Not really," said Friday. "Not the situation, anyway. But I do have a large vocabulary, and as such have no trouble understanding the meaning of your words." The police sergeant had dealt with much more intimidating people than Friday resisting arrest, so he simply took the matter in hand. He pulled Friday's chair back for her while she was still sitting on it, took her by the elbow, and guided her to her feet. Friday was mortified. She didn't have to look up to know that everyone in the room was staring at her. This would be yet another reason for all her rich classmates to snigger and laugh at her. There was nothing she could do. She was the most exciting spectacle in the dining room since Mrs. Marigold lost her temper with a vegetarian student teacher and dumped a blancmange on his head. "If you'll come with me," said the police sergeant, although Friday could barely hear him through the rushing sound in her ears. People always marvel that holding a seashell to your ear replicates the sound of the sea. But in the seconds before you faint, the movement of blood rushing out of your brain replicates the sound of the sea too. Friday saw Melanie's concerned expression. Then a movement made her look across. Ian Wainscott, the most handsome boy in school, also the most infuriatingly smug boy in school, was entering through the back door. Friday watched his face as he took in the scene. He looked surprised for a moment, then he caught Friday's eye, and his face returned to its normal, apathetic mask. The police sergeant started pulling at Friday's arm, and the world seemed to return to normal speed. Her ears started to process sound again, just in time to hear the first murmurs of malicious gossip. It was times like this when Friday wished she didn't have a brain like a supercomputer. Having a photographic memory meant that the words, and the associated hurt, would be accessible in the long-term storage of her brain's neural matrix forever. "Typical scholarship kid. Probably been stealing," whispered Mirabella. "She's probably been arrested for wearing those brown cardigans," said Tria. "She should get 5 to 10 years for crimes against fashion." "Plus another 10 for the green hat," said Judith. Now lots of people were sniggering. That was the last Friday heard of her peers as the dining room door flapped closed behind her. A squad car with lights flashing was parked at the top of the school's driveway. "The headmaster's going to hate that," said Friday. "It's a bad look for the school." "The headmaster will be grateful I'm taking you off his hands after what you—" "Ah!" said the police sergeant, as he was interrupted mid-lecture because he'd fallen into a hole about 1 foot round and 1 foot deep. "Oh, that hurts," said the police sergeant, rubbing his knees. "I wonder who put that there," said Friday. She inspected the hole. It looked like it had been dug out by hand. "This crazy school," muttered the police sergeant. "There's always something going on. Rich kids with their weird pranks, or bitter teachers with their revenge plots. The sooner we get out of here, the better." Friday looked back at the main building. She had a lump in her throat, and her eyes started to itch. She knew she wasn't suffering from hay fever because it wouldn't be spring for another 6 months. Friday wasn't terribly in touch with her emotions, but she was able to deduce that she was upset. Being forced from Highcrest Academy had affected her more than she would have imagined. The police sergeant was entirely right. Highcrest Academy was full of obnoxious children and strange teachers, but it had also become her home. She had friends. Well, one friend. And she received 3 warm meals a day. So despite the Gothic architecture and the even more Gothic attitudes of the staff, this place had made her feel safe and needed in a way her family home never had. As the squad car started to pull out down the driveway, Friday hoped this would not be the last time she saw her school. The police car wound its way through the rolling countryside to the nearest town. A female police constable was driving. They were headed for Twittingsworth, a fashionable and well-to-do rural area whose tax base owed more to the weekend homes of city bankers than the local farmers. "So what crime am I being accused of committing?" asked Friday. "We'll discuss all that in the formal interview," said the police sergeant. "Why? Is it some sort of surprise?" asked Friday. "It's a very serious offence," said the police sergeant. "We don't want to jeopardise the case by deviating from correct procedure. We're going to do this by the book. There'll be a lot of scrutiny. The National Counter-Terrorism Squad has been alerted." "Counter-terrorism!" exclaimed Friday. "But I haven't done anything." The police sergeant snorted. Save it for the interview. The police station was an old stone building, built back in the day when pride had been taken in the appearance of official institutions. Friday had not been handcuffed. No doubt there were rules about handcuffing children. She also thought it was unlikely that her own thin, spindly wrists could be contained by the same handcuffs that would be needed to restrain a fully grown man. It was the lady police constable who led Friday into the building, taking her through an open-plan office area where there were 6 desks and mountains of paperwork cluttered everywhere. There was also one separate office partitioned off at the end of the room, no doubt for the police sergeant. Everything inside the police station had been painted grey-green, except for the cheerful posters on the wall featuring famous athletes urging citizens to be respectful of women's rights. Friday was underwhelmed. She had imagined the inside of a police station to be a more exciting place, but she supposed they could not put up gruesome crime scene photos on the wall. As a result, the police station looked like an average, boring office. Friday sat down on a wooden bench outside the interview rooms. The bench reminded Friday of the one outside the headmaster's office, although on the whole it was more comfortable. Plus, the police station had less of an air of impending doom than the headmaster's office. On the far end of the bench sat a man who looked like a vagrant. but a strangely large and athletic vagrant. It was hard to gauge his height because he was sitting down, but he must have been well over 6 feet tall. He had thin, blonde hair and a rough beard. His clothes were old, worn and crumpled, and Friday noticed that he smelled quite distinctly of mould, even though she was trying her very best not to breathe through her nose. He was handcuffed to the bench. Friday felt like she'd been put next to the lion enclosure at the zoo. The lady police constable bent down to speak to Friday in what she clearly hoped was a comforting fashion. "We left a message for your mum and dad," she said, "so they should be here soon." "I doubt it," said Friday. "They never check their messages. They only have an answering system because they find it less irritating than letting their phone ring." "Well, how do we get in touch with them then?" asked the lady police constable. "I don't," said Friday. "I suppose you could send an email to one of my mother's PhD students and ask them to speak to her in person. That's what I did the time I broke my ankle on a geology excursion." "You did?" asked the lady constable. "Yes," said Friday. "I needed to let her know I wouldn't be home because the rescue helicopter couldn't pick me up from the cliff face until daylight. But I haven't done that for ages, because we're not allowed to have email access at Highcrest Academy. They have a strict anti-technology policy. They're frightened students will use handheld electronic devices against the staff." "Really?" said the lady police constable. "Yes," said Friday. "But students find ways around it. I know a girl who only took art so she could sketch incriminating drawings of her history teacher and post them to a lawyer." "This is a problem," said the lady police constable. "We can't interview you unless a family member is present." "By interview, you mean browbeat me into confessing, don't you?" asked Friday. "Well, began the lady police constable. "It's all right," Friday assured her. "As a fledgling detective, I'd enjoy seeing professionals at work. Will you do good cop, bad cop? Or are you doing it already and that's why you're being nice to me?" "Well, said the lady police constable, blushing a little at having been caught out by an 11-year-old. "This is exciting," said Friday. "Call my Uncle Bernie. He's an insurance investigator. I'll write his number down for you. He'll come right away. I can't wait to get started." Chapter 2. The Vagrant. Friday knew it would take some time for her uncle to get to the police station. His office was 2 hours away, and he might actually be doing something important that he couldn't stop the moment he got the message. So Friday reasoned that she had between 2.5 and 4 hours to fill. She took out a lollipop and stuck it in her mouth, then looked about the room. She could ask for a crossword, but she was very good at those, so it would probably only fill up 5 or 6 minutes. Friday could ask if she could read the police files, but she suspected there would be some sort of privacy law preventing the officers from showing them to a child. Also, it would probably rub the police up the wrong way if she read through their files and solved all their cold cases for them. Friday glanced at the vagrant at the far end of the bench. He didn't look like the chatty type. He looked more the hit-you-over-the-head-with-a-rusty-iron bar type. Friday decided to leave him alone. She pulled out a paperback from her back pocket and started to read. She'd only been reading for a few minutes when she realised the vagrant was watching her. He hadn't turned and stared, but he was definitely watching her out of the corner of his eye. Friday looked up at him. "Good book?" asked the vagrant. Friday hadn't expected the vagrant to engage her in a literary discussion. "It is, actually," said Friday. "It's E.M. Dowell's The Curse of the Pirate King. The story of a privileged boy who defies his family's expectations and runs away to be a pirate, then becomes enormously successful sailing the high seas and winning sword fights with people who are even more dubious than himself. We have to read it for English." "They let you read that at school?" he asked. "In my day it was all Shakespeare and Dickens." "The school is particularly proud of this book because it was written by the great-great-grandson of the school's founder, Sebastian Dowell," explained Friday. "E.M. Dowell is one of the few ex-students to become rich and famous without violating insider trading laws." "Okay," said the vagrant. "It's very exciting. We're all dying to know how it ends," continued Friday. "There's one more book to go in the series. Legend has it that E.M. Dowell came up with the idea for the whole series while he was at our school, and he wrote the last chapter first and then hid it, like it was pirate treasure." "Sounds like a weirdo," said the vagrant. "Yes," agreed Friday, "although the literary biographies phrase it differently. Their euphemism is eccentric recluse." The vagrant snorted a laugh and went back to staring into the middle distance. Now that she knew he wasn't dangerously terrifying, Friday was curious. "What have they busted you for?" asked Friday. "What's it to you?" asked the vagrant. "I'm up on terrorism charges," said Friday. The vagrant raised an eyebrow. "I didn't do it," said Friday. "I'm wrongly accused." The vagrant snorted again. Look, I know I look like a child, mainly because I'm only 11 years old, said Friday, but I am actually a successful private investigator. I've solved a bank robbery and thwarted a bird smuggling ring, as well as lots of smaller cases. Why don't you tell me your story? Perhaps I can help. The vagrant didn't look at Friday, but he didn't look away either. He was clearly thinking about it. I'm waiting for my uncle to get here so I can be interviewed, volunteered Friday. What are you waiting for? Their computer to identify my fingerprints, said the vagrant. So you're refusing to tell them who you are? Asked Friday. The vagrant shrugged. I didn't do anything wrong, so why should I help them? Interesting tactic, said Friday admiringly. But aren't you worried that you'll make them angry by being unnecessarily uncooperative? Cops are always angry whatever you do, said the vagrant. They have an awful job dealing with horrible people all day long. Time wasting is the least of their worries. In fact, they quite like it because it increases their chances of getting overtime. Come on then, said Friday. Since we're both stuck here for the next couple of hours, give me something to do. Tell me the details of your case. The vagrant sighed. He was obviously weighing up his options. He seemed to be the type of man who preferred to remain silent when possible. They say I stole a blue sapphire bracelet, said the vagrant. Did you? Asked Friday. No, said the vagrant. So why do they think you did? She asked. The vagrant shrugged. Then he looked down at his clothes. Look at me. I'm a bum. Friday nodded. She sucked her lollipop as she thought about it. Truth be told, she wasn't dressed much better herself. But it's a fact of life that some people can wear unironed earth tones and look like an eccentric academic, and some people can look like a bum who's been sleeping rough for a week. Take me through the details, urged Friday. Apparently some rich housewife was taking a shower and she put her bracelet on the windowsill, said the vagrant. When she got out of the shower, the bracelet was gone. And they immediately arrested you? Asked Friday. I was seen by 3 separate witnesses as I walked through the field behind the lady's house, explained the vagrant. That doesn't look good, conceded Friday. There was a prison break at the maximum security jail yesterday, continued the vagrant, and they say I look like an ex-con. Fair enough. So the cops picked me up on the road out of town, said the vagrant. And when they searched me, they found that I was wearing a prison-issue undershirt. Why were you wearing a prison-issue undershirt? Asked Friday. Because I was released from prison yesterday, said the vagrant. Oh, said Friday, taken aback. She had started to warm to this vagrant, but now that she knew he was actually a con, she was not so confident of her ability or the appropriateness of getting him off. What did you do time for? I don't want to talk about it, said the vagrant. That bad, huh? Said Friday. I don't want to talk about it, he repeated. Okay, said Friday, but I can see how you would fit the profile for just about any crime likely to be committed in a small country town. I didn't do it, said the vagrant. Friday looked at him with pity. That was what people always said when they realised that no logical argument would be persuasive. So let me get the facts straight, she said. You were released from prison yesterday, and how did you leave? I walked, said the vagrant. I walked until I got tired at about 10 o'clock. Then I found a nice big bush, and I curled up underneath to go to sleep. Then this morning you resumed walking? Asked Friday. That's right, said the vagrant. I like walking and being outside. And there was a rich lady in town who took a shower, said Friday. Who knows how long rich ladies take to shower? Probably longer than average, because they wouldn't care about the hot water bill. So maybe as much as 15 minutes or 20 at the outside. She wouldn't want to get pickled fingers. And during that 20-minute window, you just happened to be walking through the field behind her house. Yes, said the vagrant glumly. Where's the bracelet now? Asked Friday. I don't know, said the vagrant. I didn't take it, and the police can't find it. So they're saying I took it and stashed it somewhere, planning to come back and get it later. That would work, agreed Friday. Or you could have swallowed it. A whole sapphire bracelet, exclaimed the vagrant. You could have put it in a lump of cheese and swallowed that, said Friday. That's what we did with our cat when we wanted her to swallow a tablet. I didn't swallow the bracelet, said the vagrant. Is there any possibility that you did swallow it, but now you have no memory of doing so? Perhaps because you subsequently suffered a blow to the head while you were resisting arrest, asked Friday. What makes you think I resisted arrest? Asked the vagrant. Well, there's an open first aid kit on the desk over there, said Friday, and a red droplet of spatter on the linoleum floor by the doorway, which looks a lot like blood. Friday pointed at the spot without turning her head towards it. She did not care for blood and didn't think that fainting in front of this large vagrant would help her street cred. Also, there are 6 desks in this room, but I've only seen 2 police officers, continued Friday, which suggests to me that somewhere in this building there is a police officer receiving medical attention. I didn't hurt anyone, said the vagrant. The constable tore his pants when he leapt over a barbed wire fence trying to chase after me. He got a nasty scrape on his backside. They took him to the doctor for a tetanus injection. Said Friday. You do make an excellent suspect. You even look like a criminal. I know, said the vagrant. With so much circumstantial evidence and your criminal record and frightening physical appearance working against you, continued Friday, you could quite easily end up back behind bars for this. Said the vagrant. You're making me wish I didn't start talking to you. The only thing that will clear your name is finding the bracelet, said Friday. If you do, there's a big reward, said the vagrant. $10,000 to anyone who provides information leading to its recovery. Well, it's a good job I know where it is then, said Friday. You do? Asked the vagrant. But first, before I take a client, I like to know what their name is, said Friday. The vagrant paused for a moment. It obviously went against the grain for him to concede anything. Malcolm, he eventually said. What about you? Suddenly the main doors burst open and Uncle Bernie hurried in. Friday! What mess have you got yourself into now? Terrorism charges? You haven't been looking up bomb recipes on the internet, have you? Of course not, said Friday. I promised the federal agents I'd never do that again. The sergeant emerged from his office. Mr. Barnes, I'm Sergeant Crowley, he said. If you'd both step into the interview room, we have a lot of questions for your niece. What about me? Asked Malcolm. It's all right, said Friday. When they let me off, I'll fix up your thing too. What if they don't let you off? Asked Malcolm. Well, I don't think I'd be a very good advocate for you then, conceded Friday, as the lady police constable led her into the interview room. The end. Okay, well, they're the first 2 chapters, I want to say. Yeah, they're the first 2 chapters. And I might come back and read the 3rd chapter to you next week, because that's actually a complete mini mystery with a beginning, middle, and end. So it won't leave you on too much of a cliffhanger. And as I say, if you want to get the audiobook, it's available from all the places you can buy audiobooks. That's Audible, Apple Books, but also if you're on Spotify Premium, you can get it there too. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed that. We'll have the next chapter next week and then get back into some folk stories and mythology after that. Okay, well, that's it for now. Until next time, goodbye. Hello, it's me again. If you enjoyed listening to Bedtime Stories with R.A. Spratt, it would be really helpful if you could like, subscribe, follow, and or review the show on whatever podcast platform you're listening to now. Every little one of those digital affirmations helps, and the bigger this podcast gets, the more I can justify procrastinating from my real job to keep bringing these stories to you. Thank you.